Hey, lovely people. This is a show about interesting people I bump into who share intimate stories about their lives and their general views about life. I actually believe we all have a story to tell and we each can learn from each other. And I hope the show does that for you. My name is Notom Chali and it's an absolute pleasure to meet you. Welcome. This week I bumped into Refilwe Damane. The only word I could find to describe him was Nomad. Refilwe is an economist who specializes in development. He has lived in the US, China, Hong Kong, London, and South Africa. In this podcast episode, he shares his experience of being a black man in China.
Well, I think, China, like any other country, has that curiosity about black people, which sometimes can veer very closely into racism.
And he also provides the solution on how to fix Africa.
Well, but I think it's very similar to that. I think we talked about this yesterday, about how, to facilitate that process, then you're going to have to invest a lot in infrastructure. And the issue with that is that we still don't have good infrastructural developments in Africa. There's a lot of things that, we have roads, but we have a very low road density in Africa.
And much, much more. I hope you enjoy this episode. And as always, please provide any feedback if this episode adds any value to you. I think I'm just excited about this. So, yeah, man, as I just explained to you, this is your floor. Just feel like you're at home. And again, it's just a conversation that we're having, right?
Right.
So glad that there's actually no camera, because you'll be actually even more awkward there, if that's even a word. Because once the red light comes on, people just freeze. But anyways, I'm just glad. Welcome to my homemade studio. I'd like to call it that, Hope you're enjoying your coffee over there.
Thanks for having me.
Huh?
Thanks for having me.
Of course.
But yeah.
It's fine. So look, on the show today, as I said before, we have Refilwe, and he likes to say his surname is Damane, but Refilwe Damane. So Refilwe, welcome to the show. I bumped into, and I'm actually glad I bumped into you, because you're a very hard man to reach, especially since you're always traveling. So look, for those of the people that don't know you, especially since we'll touch on it later, you don't really have social media. Can you give a brief background about yourself? But also, how I'd like for you to actually introduce yourself is, how would your best friend introduce Refilwe Damane?
Oh, that's a tough one. Well, okay. I don't know if I can introduce myself from somebody else's perspective, but they will say I am Ref. Most of the people now call me Ref instead of Refilwe, which is just because of my travels. But I guess the other thing they will say is I do like to go about a lot, and I guess your brother summarized it yesterday, that I am a nomad, so I can't really see myself being in one place. Okay, I guess for so long I couldn't really see myself being in one place for too long, but now I'm sort of coming down to the idea that I can be in this region, hopefully Southern Africa or East Africa, that's more closer to home. But I would still feel like I would be going up and down along that coast or that area, rather than just being in one place. So I think the best way to summarize it is that it's probably very impossible to put me down for more than 2 years.
Okay. Wow. Jeez. You ain't loyal to a place, clearly.
It depends. I have a feeling that there are places that I've fallen in love with, like London, like Hong Kong. But even then, I couldn't see myself living longer than a 5-year period. I feel like a 5-year stretch would have been the longest I could see myself being in that place. And I think part of that comes back to the fact that I want to see myself closer to home than further away. But those are the places that I've completely fallen in love with. I could go there over and over again.
So just on that point, because you've touched on your whole life within a minute and where you've been, and some people obviously wouldn't know how you got there,
right,
which is what I want to dive deeper into as well. So just to take a step back, can you take me through your schooling journey? So first of all, where did you grow up before you started your nomadic journey? Where did you grow up, and then where did you go to from there?
Well, I grew up in Lesotho, in the southern district of Gauteng. And I went to school there for most of my life until I did my CS, or we call it COSC, but it's now called the LGCSE, which is like the final year of high school. But then I had this opportunity through the United World College to go to Hong Kong on a scholarship to do my IB. And I think that's where everything just opened up because, well, to be fair, I couldn't really see myself doing university in Lesotho. I just knew I wanted to go somewhere else. And then so when this opportunity came up, I was just like, yes, go. And I went, and that's when I went. And then I went to Hong Kong, did my IB, got another scholarship to go to the US and did my undergrad there. And then I came back for a little bit, worked in Lesotho for a little bit, and then moved back to London to continue.
Okay, wait. Sorry. Let's stop on Hong Kong, right? So, sorry to even interrupt you. I just want to to dive deeper into...
Yeah, that was the abridged version of it.
Yeah, the abridged version. So, for me, sitting in South Africa, I'm in matric. How do I get a scholarship? Like, is that scholarship number one? Does it still exist? And did Hong Kong come knocking on your door? Like, a lot of scholarships came at once. There was Hong Kong, China, etc., etc. Or did you specifically look out for Hong Kong?
Okay. Well, I think the scholarship still exists, and it exists for all nationalities, including South Africans and everybody else.
So, what's the scholarship called?
United World College, UWC. They have one in Swaziland, which is, I think, a lot of South Africans go to that one because it's just the nearest one to here. But there are about, I think there might be 17 now across the world, those sort of colleges. It's just like
So I can find it online?
Yeah, of course.
And then, and in terms of like the cohorts, like how many people do they take a year?
Well, it clearly varies by every national committee. You know, there's a national committee and a selection committee in every country, which will select how many people qualify and how many people get to go. But I think in terms of like how many people go, that varies with the college and the location. Because I think Swaziland might take a lot more students than, say, Hong Kong or the UK or the US or Costa Rica. You know, each one, I think that they try to have as much representation of every country in every college as possible, but it's not always possible because obviously there has to be financial assistance tied to you going to Costa Rica or to India or wherever. So that's why it might not be possible for everyone, but I think a good amount of students get to go.
At this point in time, Refilwe went to the US to study for 4 years. He then came back to Hong Kong, his first love, to begin the process of finding a new job. He later ended up finding a job in China. We pick up the conversation about China right now. Okay.
Yeah.
Now you find yourself a black man in China, you know? So, first of all, how long did you work there for?
About a year.
A year. And just briefly touch on the experience. I mean, I've spoken to some people who've actually worked in China, taught in China, visited China. Just take me through the experience of being a black person in China. I know Shanghai is more of a metropolitan city, so they're probably more accustomed to seeing black people. But just, briefly, take us through that journey.
Well, I think, China, like any other country, has that curiosity about black people, which sometimes can veer very closely into racism. But I think it's just, from a long time, I think I've sort of like grown accustomed to being like that black kid amongst a lot of like non-black people. But like Shanghai is very different, like you said, it's very metropolitan. There's a big population of Africans, particularly Nigerians, Ghanaians, West Africans, and even like a small bunch of Southern Africans, they are there. So it wasn't, there was not going to be a curiosity about seeing a black person in the streets of Shanghai. But I do think though, like once you step outside, you go to Chengdu, which doesn't see that many black people, then you start becoming like almost an object of a lot of gazing. People come to you, they want to touch your hair. They want to those sort of things happen because they don't really get to see seeing a black man is it's not a rare thing, but it's like a, how do I say this? It's like, I guess rare is the right word.
I'm trying to understand. Are they coming to, and forgive me maybe for my ignorance, but are they trying to touch you to see if you're human, or if you're real, or
no. I think, and this is the thing. I think in China there is a little bit of that curiosity, which I think some people perceive it as
being racist.
But I think to me, and I want to put this as correctly as possible, or else I can afford to. I think to me it's just a curiosity, because it's never going to be violent. I mean, sure. Yeah, there might be instances where they sort of like dismiss you because you're black, or they treat you a certain way because you're black. But like, I mean, to me, those instances are just like a curiosity thing. They want to see, okay, you have curly hair, they don't have curly hair. So they touch your hair to see what it feels like, that sort of thing. They want to take your picture and, they're going to show your friend. I mean, it can be a little bit more like, it can bother you sometimes, but okay, maybe because for me, I didn't really see it as anything more,
just from a curiosity.
Yeah, I was just like, okay, they're curious. I mean, okay, the more people do it, then you start being like, okay, no, I can't do this anymore. But like, one or two people come up to you, and you're like, okay, fine. I'll just let them have their moment of fun for a little bit.
Do you feel like a celeb in
a little bit, because actually, I think there was one time when a camera crew came to me and followed me and asked me like, oh, how do you find this place? Have you enjoyed it? How long have you been here? Those sort of things, So that's why I say it's like a little bit of a curiosity. And then there I was on TV in a local TV station.
So basically, you quite the celeb in those parts of China.
That part possibly, but it's I don't know if it's celeb.
No, that's very interesting. I mean, I had a friend, Unandi as well. I mean, this was in varsity, who went to China, and then she came back and she just took us through her whole experience of Chinese people, and like they would ask her questions of why is your hand white, like on the inside, but dark on the outside, which for me, obviously, I was like, okay, this is quite weird and awkward. And as you actually describing the situation, people would literally stop and take pictures of her, And for me, again, it just, I don't know, clearly you see it differently, and I see it also a bit, it's offensive for me, but I also get where they're coming from. I mean, they're very curious. Because if you stop to take pictures, it's almost like I'm at the Kruger National Park.
Yeah. That's what I said. There's an element of that gaze and stuff.
Yeah, like I'm gazing, let me stop to take a picture of this person, to be honest, I don't know how I actually feel about it, because I'm kind of understanding from their point of view, but also it's just offensive for me. But then again, I mean, I can't take them out of China to see the world.
Right. That's what I say. I think it's,
so if the world comes to them, it's not their fault. It's the first time they're seeing a black person. So you can almost see how people might, and I understand where you come from, because it's like, yeah, but look, they've never seen a black person.
Right. And I do think there are instances where, yes, you should take offense, and you have to point those out to them, because then they aren't going to understand, right? But like, I feel like in those situations, I mean, it is how you react to it. For me, it was just like, okay, let them, because I was think about this. If I was thinking like in a rural area back home, if some Chinese person comes, I'll probably be very curious about them too. Like, okay, who's this person? What are they doing here? So I think I just try to flip that back. But then, yes, you can. I think you perfectly be. And
we can look. Let's flip the table a little bit, right? So imagine the first time black people saw Chinese. When they came here, it would be interesting. I mean, I wasn't there, and maybe it wasn't recorded, but it would be interesting to see how they reacted, because even as black people, we still do some offensive things, especially when you're describing a Chinese person, and you can also see the kids also being fascinated. I mean, I've been to the rural areas when a Chinese person comes, and kids go a bit wild and like, oh wow, why is he look like this, etc. So yeah, okay, cool. I get it. still not comfortable with it, but I get it.
No, I have to say, I mean, it does depend on how thick your skin is. So, I mean, if there are some instances where I think, yeah, you should possibly find friends with. But in some others, I just like, okay, whatever, let them have fun.
Not all of us are going to get the opportunity to go to China. I'd love to go there. So, I mean, look, we can only draw from your experiences and also other people that have been there. And the nice thing is that you've lived there as well, right? So you have more in-depth knowledge of the culture and the people. Just briefly, I'm very interested actually in China, but just briefly tell me about the 3 major key differences between Shanghai and an African city like Johannesburg, Durban, or just South Africa in general. Like, is it the tech? Outside of the culture, I'm more looking on the technology aspect. I want to see the gap. How far behind or ahead are we? I mean, I haven't been there, so... Like,
okay. Simple answer, we are way behind. They are way ahead of us. For many things. You know, like the simplest thing, you know WeChat, right? In China, WeChat is this developed by Tencent. It's a very huge company. And
WeChat at one point, I believe, was actually bigger than WhatsApp. I think WhatsApp has just recently taken over in terms of active users.
right, no, I'm not sure, but yeah, possibly.
But we can actually research this stuff. But okay, yeah.
But all I'm saying is like WeChat it has become this like highly integrated app. You know, if you have WeChat, you basically just need that one app and then you can do everything for it. You know, for example, there's WeChat Pay. Okay, I guess I can show you, but like there's WeChat Pay, which is integrated. It's like
why you have WeChat?
e-wallet.
You still have WeChat?
Why? Because I still have friends in China that
And who you paying? Oh, okay.
yeah, I've never used the service, but I was just showing you like some of these things, you know, and you can see how it has all those features that just allow you to pretty much do anything. I can even send money from China to Lesotho, to Africa, to any place in the world, just on that. So I don't even need a Western Union or MoneyGram type thing.
Back up a bit. You can send money from China to Lesotho. And what about fees?
There's a minimal fee because they try to reduce that fee so then you don't have to incur it. And it goes directly to the account of the person I want to send to.
Wait, okay. So the only thing I need is to have WeChat.
So like I said, it's your best friend when you're in China. Actually, because like China has developed a system that you can go like this. And actually there was a funny story, I think 2 months back, about a store in China that doesn't want to serve a person with cash, so they said they should pay with WeChat. And then the government had to say, okay, no, we're still an economy that uses cash. We're not just a cashless society anymore. But like that just shows how far everything has gone, because now a lot of people are just using WeChat for everything because they can afford to.
After the break, Refilwe then leaves China, goes back to Lesotho where he was born to work for an NGO. Then he decides to leave again. As I told you, he's a nomad. But okay, cool. So you've worked for 2 years and now you're deciding to do your masters. Where are you deciding to do your masters, number one? And you're obviously looking for scholarships.
Well, okay, like I said, I just wanted a variety of experiences. I've been taught in Asia, I've been taught in North America, I've been taught in Africa, so I just needed a different continent. And so to me, it was just like, okay, apply to European schools, preferably in the UK, but like European schools. And so that's what I did. And I looked for scholarships around the schools that I went to. And fortunately, I think I did get one in the school that I wanted. So I was like, it was just a huge slice of luck in that sense. Because it's very difficult to get scholarships, but the scholarships are there. You know, it's just how much effort you put into developing an application that will appeal to the scholarship committee. And
okay, so let's just spend a few minutes on this, because I think this is key, especially for people who have a degree and may not get a job instantly coming out of university. They have their honors, but it's like, okay, cool, where to from here? You know, I've also tried to apply, but I never really finished the application. Not that I failed. Didn't fail, didn't get rejected. There's nothing wrong with rejection. My first question on this, are there scholarships are there a lot of scholarships
Yes.
willing to send
Yes.
people overseas?
Yes. The answer is yes.
And where can one find these scholarships? I know, look, where can one find? I don't want to answer for you.
The simple answer is you just do an internet search. I mean, there's a lot of platforms. There's Dev Scholars, there's DevX, those are all like online. They like aggregate all the scholarships. And there's also the Pan-African Scholarship Program. It also aggregates every scholarship out there that's available for Africans. And it will like divide it into like categories or schools or continents, it'll be like, okay, schools in Europe. And then you see like a long list of scholarships. And then you just determine whether you're eligible for that scholarship, because there's always a criteria like, okay, you have to be this, you have to be this age, you have to be in this field, or you of this, have had scored at this level, those sort of things, and then there are also like school-based scholarships. I know a lot of them don't really cover field tuition, but they're there in case you just need something to supplement your like tuition, so then you don't have to pay the whole thing. So
I'll do, yeah.
So I just felt like, to me, it's just a matter of going out there and like looking for them, because anybody can find a scholarship. It's just whether you'll meet the criteria to actually get it.
And so what I'll do for the people that are listening is I'll put, if you'll share with me, please, like all the links where you can find some scholarships, and I'll just put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
So, at least people can click
Right.
and begin their journey for those
Right.
see, my English is escaping me now. For those people that actually want to pursue this further and study a master's. And then just tell me, like, is this a chicken and an egg problem? Like, what happens? Do you look for the school first and then find the scholarship, or do you get the scholarship first, then find the school, or do they place you in the school?
I think it depends. I mean, there are some scholarships that are specific to certain schools, I think mine was specific to 3 or 4 schools. Like, you could only get it if you applied to those schools. But there's some, like the Chevening is more general. You can go anywhere.
Which is the one you received, right?
No, that's the one Bussy received. But a lot of other people received that one too.
Okay.
Because I think it has a bigger reputation because they're more active in South Africa and in a lot of African places to try to recruit people. It's a UK's government one. And they're also the French government one.
So you're going to share that with me as well?
Yeah, okay. It'll all be there. But like the French one is also, they don't have a specific school. They just want you to apply, because most of it is like government scholarship. But I think the school scholarships are going to be specific to the school. If you're applying to, University of Amsterdam, then you only will get that scholarship if you get accepted. The problem is, I think for them is like, you have to get accepted first before they award you a scholarship. But like 9 times, okay, maybe not 9 times out of 10, but like the chances of like admission into school is really high versus the chances of actually obtaining a scholarship. So it's very likely that you will get accepted, but it's just a matter of like, okay, will you then also get an offer from the scholarship committee that matches?
So simply put, you're saying that it's easier to get into the school, being admitted, versus you getting funding.
I want to say, I think in general that's true, but I don't want to generalize it for everybody. I think there are some instances where you might not, get accepted to a certain school, but I think, especially for graduate level, I think it might be more stringent for undergraduate level to get admission. But I think for graduate level, admission is a little bit easier. But then it's navigating the way to obtaining a scholarship that might be a bit tricky. I think for me, I got an admission long before I even knew what scholarship I was going to get.
And what scholarship did you get?
Canon Collins.
Canon. Mm-hmm. And do you know how many people they give it to?
For my class, I think there was just 3 of us, maybe 4.
Dude, you are the chosen one.
It's not a chosen one. They don't give that many to begin with. So, because they give a lot more in South Africa. They're more active in South Africa for South African universities, but for UK universities, they don't have that many scholarships.
Okay. No, sorry. I was just thinking how I'm going to title the show Refilwe Damane, the chosen one. No, man, I'm just pulling your leg. Okay, so now you've received the scholarship and you've been accepted into
SOAS.
SOAS, which stands for?
Well, it used to stand for School of Oriental African Studies, but I think they just changed it now. It's just SOAS, University of London.
Okay. Weird. but it still stands for.
No, I mean, I think they've moved away from that because I think there were some people who were finding the term Oriental in a progressive school like SOAS to still be a little problematic. So they moved away.
And what did you study there?
I did development, mostly on globalization and political economy.
That sounds very deep and complicated. And was this for a year?
No, it's just for a year. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I want to pause there. We'll take a break, and when we come back, let's chat development and economics in the global sense. So we are now in London, but before I get into London, I want to ask you just a question on misconceptions, right? What are the biggest misconceptions you hear amongst students or people in South Africa or in Lesotho about studying abroad?
I think one, there's that idea or belief that it's very difficult, or you need to be very smart, or have very high grades to make it abroad, which is not necessarily true. I mean, it helps to have good grades. It makes it easier for you to get admitted, but you don't have to. You don't have to be like 10 distinctions.
Yeah, but there is a minimum, right?
Depends on that's what I say. It's going to depend on the degree you're studying for. If I'm studying, I don't know, if I'm studying arts and then I have. I don't feel like me getting a B in English is obviously not in English, maybe say mathematics, it's not, there's no relevance there. So I do feel like it's going to depend on what degree you're going for and what they find as necessary for you to be able to succeed in a school like that.
Okay, so you do agree there is a minimum?
There is, surely for any degree there will be some minimum.
But so if I'm a 60 student, can I still get?
If you're one?
60s, GPA?
I think it's going to depend on the degree. That is always going to be the case, though. I mean, it's just going to depend on what you're applying for and what for them is the minimum standard for you to meet. And
are there any other misconceptions that you hear amongst your friends that you say to yourself, guys, this is total BS, really?
I think that's a key one. I'm trying to think about the other ones. I mean, because that's the one I hear a lot, like, oh, it's so difficult to get, and, all those things. And it's just like, well, not if you want it, So to me, I think that's the most fundamental one. I'm trying to think if there's another one. Let me come back to that one. I'll just keep thinking.
Okay. No problem. So we over in London, seeing the Queen having some tea. I see now, over there at Buckingham Palace. Jeez. So you said you studied developmental economics, right? Yeah. So just briefly explain to me. Say I was a 5-year-old. What are you studying there?
Oh God, for a 5-year-old, I think that's the way I'm having issues because I don't know how to describe it. But I would just say, it's understanding how economies or countries in every country, particularly those that have almost minimal resources or highly resource constrained, can try to develop, or what they can do, what policies they can advance or like advocate in order for them to also achieve some level of development.
Okay, so the end goal to make everyone better off.
Obviously, I mean, that's what most governments purport to achieve. But whether they actually really do that is the practice or the missing part.
Okay, so you did that for a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And did you enjoy it?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of the times, and here's the thing. I mean, there are some things, I think, particularly as an African, growing up and seeing the state of our continent that you see, and particularly you might instinctively understand. But then having somebody explain it and give you that sort of like background and context and like bringing it together from like different places is what made the course very enjoyable for me. I mean, I took I took an African economics module, which in a lot, like I said, in a lot of ways, a lot of the things that were said there, I have sort of already knew or sort of seen in many ways. So it wasn't shocking or new, but it's just like the way it's crystallized and given to you in this very structured manner that it's just like, yes, okay, I understand this now because I can recall and I have seen experiences, maybe not like in a high-end meeting, but like, you know, you've seen somebody do this and you sort of understand like, okay, no wonder this is not working because A, B, C, and D.
Cool. I can see how you, thank you for that actually. I'm glad you enjoyed it because you actually find a lot of people going to courses or going to courses or either study degrees that they don't really find much value in or they don't really love, you know. So it's good to see that at least you were doing some, well, you enjoyed it, number one, which I think is key.
It is. Okay.
I'm going to ask you, it's an unfair question, but me being me, I might as well, let me take a stab at it. I guess it's the question that every African that's interested in actually making Africa better asks, right? From your studies. And I guess this is theory, right? Because I mean, when you're studying it was all theory, obviously backed up with different case studies, but how do you fix Africa?
That's a $1 million question, isn't it?
And look, I know that's what I'm saying. Like in your view, and again, economics is very complex, right? So you fix one industry is going to have domino effects on that industry in that country and Africa and the world. The US might. Okay, let me not even go down that path. But how do you fix Africa?
Okay, I can't. I'm never going to claim to give an answer to that, but I will just say, I think to me, there are things that you think might benefit Africa, and one to me key is integration of Africa, because a lot of the times we don't actually trade anything with each other, and it's understandable. I mean, African economies are really small economies, so there's not going to be much to trade with each other based off. And another thing. We are all, not all, maybe most of us are like resource dependent countries. You know, we pretty much export the same things. There's gold here, there's gold there, there's oil there, you know.
No, but so, we in terms of resources, are we not the richest?
We are, that's the problem.
Continent.
We are the richest continent by far, I mean, by a lot of things. But in a lot of those resources have also been plundered, not by us or for us, but by economies that are far away from us. You know, like your Europe, your North America, your Asia. Those are the ones that are benefiting from our resources. And the big part of it is that because we also still just most of the time we never really refine any of our resources. What we export away is just raw materials that are very low value chain. There's no value added to our economies because you're exporting timber when you should be exporting like carpentry, you know, like finished goods. But we don't do that. But I think what's happening now, or what's gaining ground or momentum right now, is that a lot of African economies are coming together to like facilitate that process of making value added industries in Africa, based in Africa, so that they will serve our interests. And then in that case, we don't even have to import as much anymore, because what we do a lot is we import quite a lot of everything that we use. And I mean, naturally, yes, because even some of the things that, and this is the other gap, some of the times you have industries that are here making some goods that we require, but then because of resource constraints or because of investment gaps or savings gaps or whatever, you find that the quality is not really good. So really, you're still going to go to that company.
And just on that, look, I'm trying to tap into my economic knowledge. It's been a while since I studied economics, but touching on your point in terms of us exporting raw materials with low value, for us to import, you obviously need money. More specifically, you need foreign currency, right? Wherever you're exporting from. So my question is, I'm just trying to structure this properly and simply as well. We are importing on debt because we're not really getting the income from our exports that is going to equate to the amount of money we need to import. meaning that it's like us if a country was a person, we're buying on a credit card.
Yeah, basically. Which sometimes we hope to say, and this is the thing, sometimes we hope to service our debt with aid, which is we get from either the EU or the US or from China, we get all those things. And sometimes it helps, but that cannot continue sustainably forever, at least not for our developmental purposes, because it just means we're not really progressing, because we're not going to develop our own foreign currency reserves that way.
And we become a prisoner to
pretty much
to those banks.
What they've done to us so far.
Hey man, that's another podcast episode, and I'd love to actually, yes, just a note. I'm going to have that, and you must join the panel. It'll be interesting. Look, so cool. So you were saying that we need to have more trade, right?
Yeah, that's one. I think that's one. And the other thing
so just on that, to be clear, open borders, something that Gaddafi was preaching, right? And
also a lot of people have preached.
The first person that came to mind was Gaddafi. I don't know I think Thabo Mbeki also touched on it at one point. Sinkara as well. Yes, So, okay, number one is trade. Open borders, similar to Europe, right?
In a way, yes.
Okay. What else?
Well, but I think it's very similar to that. I think we talked about this yesterday, about how, to facilitate that process, then you're going to have to invest a lot in infrastructure, sorry. And the issue with that is that we still don't have good infrastructural developments in Africa. There's a lot of things that, we have roads, but we have a very low road density in Africa. And rail links are even fewer.
What do you mean by road density?
Road density just means we have roads, some that are good, but can that road carry me to every place that I want to go in Africa? That's the problem. We have roads there'll be a road from here to Pretoria, but there's just one road. There's no other road that can come from another point. So that just means, in case of that, we have very few roads. That's what road density means. That could allow us to facilitate trade, but also just movements of anything along of goods, of whatever we might need across borders.
So now, hence why it's so complex. And
it is.
So for us,
that's why it's nice.
we need to build infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
And so to facilitate better trade and more trade between African countries, and then we can refine goods, etc., etc. The $1 million question is, where does this money come from?
Well, that's the thing. Ideally, it should come from our countries, because, like I said, we have so much resources that we should be able to have those resources benefit us and grow our own investments, our own savings, so that we can then go.
But it comes back to, what you call it, the chicken and egg. For us to be able to refine, we need infrastructure. But for you to get infrastructure, you need investment. So it becomes this.
Well, but if you think about it, we do have this. It's just I think for me, the starting point is, okay, you have the resources, right? So, okay, obviously you realize that there is a gap between your resources and what you need to do. And so that investment gap to, develop a lot of the support that will facilitate you going up that chain, that value chain. But, so to me is okay, do you have, so let's say I have a gold mine, right? Okay, so clearly I don't have the transport links yet to take my gold to the market. But okay, I can sell my gold. This is a very simple scenario. It doesn't really happen this way, but I'm trying to.
I'm a 5-year-old, so
yeah, I can sell my gold to that market, and then it should come back with the royalties and all the revenue that comes from it. And so then, can I use some of that revenue to start building a road for a market, or improving something else, improving my ICT, whatever, sending things to the port to ship them away. That's the stepping. I think to me that's the starting question. Okay, so can we use what we have to funnel the revenues and the royalties that we get from there towards investing in our own infrastructure?
But I'm sure we get royalties, but it just doesn't trickle down to.
That's exactly the problem. People. It doesn't quite get there. Not just to the people, but to services that we need, right? because then if you have those things, they need to be going towards what the country needs. And so what are those things? So there's like those things. If we can deliver those directly from, if we can have, and the other problem is we're not very, there's no like transparency in a lot of what we do, which will become.
Okay. I was leading towards that.
Yeah, but if we could, then that's where, if I get 10 rand for every gold that I sell, every gold piece that I sell, then that's what should be going towards my development of infrastructure or any other like services that I might need to support my trade and also to help with other things. Because then the problem is, I think the problem with your infrastructure, it has a lot of linkages to other services. You know, you're not gonna, if you don't develop infrastructure, then there's no backward linkage to any other thing. There's no forward linkage to other services that you might have gotten from being a country that's rich in mine, because then you're not going to be able to have a processing plant. You can't if you start developing infrastructure. So that's what I think to me is the missing link. I mean, and I think the thing now is I think a lot of countries now are realizing that this is a problem. Well, actually, I think they've realized it a lot, but then now you start seeing movements towards building these things, you know. Most of it is China supported, but you see it that there is evidence that we are getting infrastructure. And yes,
is it just on that?
Yes, I mean, there has been some people who have complained about this being so largely China driven. But I do think, I mean, for so long we've had aid that has come to Africa that has not really developed our infrastructure. And that's what has held us back. I mean, you can funnel however much money you want into a country, but as long as you're not developing the foundation, it's not going to work for you.
And and you love China, so I know you'll probably defend it. No, I'm just joking. Just briefly on that, this comes at a cost, right?
It does.
It's, and I don't want to make it binary to say it's either we get aid or we be in bed with China. But you know, let's just entertain that fact. Are we choosing? Is China a lesser evil?
Okay. The problem is the right thing would have been to be dependent, but we're not. We're highly aid dependent. So then which is what the corollary of your question is do we want to get, okay, if we are realizing that we are aid dependent, who do we want to get into bed with, right? And so to me, I think the simplest answer is it doesn't matter who you get into bed with, as long as you take that aid and make it productive. I mean, that's the end goal of aid should not be to sit in a reserve bank. It should be to work for things that will make your economy more productive down the years.
What's your view on aid? I know there's a book I still need to read called Dead Aid.
Yeah.
Have you read the book? And yeah, actually, what is your view on aid to developing countries? More specifically, let's talk about Africa. What's your view on aid?
Can be helpful. Like I said, I think...
Wait. You see, that's the thing. In theory, it can be helpful and the intention is good. My question, is it working? Because
clearly not. We know it's...
So, do you not think it's time for us to relook that? Because we've been getting aid for a couple of years, you know, and I don't want to speak for other African countries, you know. I mean, South Africa is a bit, it's well ahead in terms of the other impoverished African countries, but I'd love to actually have people from those countries speak on actually aid, because they receive more aid than South Africa and etc. But just your view from your experiences and economics.
I think aid can work. That's the theory. I mean, like you said, it's going to depend on what you use it for. Like, I think that's been an issue for so long, that aid, we get a lot of it, but sometimes it's not used properly, or it doesn't even get used at all. It's just more fun. I think the word is like aid fungibility, which just means you have this coming, but then it's not really going to the places. And I think that's been what the bottleneck with aid in Africa has been for so long. Because as long as you have aid, and then, okay, say, for example, and somebody takes it away in a very corrupt way, or like uses it very inefficiently, then you start wondering what's the point of aid. But the good intention of aid should be to help you, like, you know, like I was talking about that investment gap or savings gap in terms of what we can actually do, because we don't have a lot of, we do have resources, but we don't have a lot of productivity here. So we have that productivity, investment gap and savings gap. Aid can help close that gap, which can make it easier for you then to start building industries that will be more productive in your own local economy. That's what they should be doing. Whether they're doing that, we know they're not, because we've had so many years. I mean, but there are countries like Rwanda that have actually made it much more productive for them. And you see Rwanda is growing. You see like Ethiopia, they're also getting a lot of aid, but they're using it productively. They're using it in the agricultural industry. They're using it to build their own factories. So in a sense, what they're doing is taking aid and building industry that are going to be local, that are going to export things domestically and like internationally, but also that makes it, even if aid stops, they will have something that they will be like, okay, we don't need aid anymore because now we're so further ahead, because we can then become a productive economy on our own resources.
Okay.
If that happens for all African countries, yeah, we might be talking in very, very far. We shouldn't even be talking about aid. That's the problem.
So, two things before we wrap up that I want to ask you on Africa. Number one, I don't want to shoot straight. Let's close off Africa. What happens then? Let's close off Africa to the rest of the world, and we trade with ourselves. I mean, that's something again. Gaddafi.
We can close off.
No, I'm toying with the idea.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's have fun, on economics. We close off Africa. We're gonna trade only with Africa. We have the resources. We have actually the land, and we're just gonna trade with ourselves. Mikasa Sukasa, but as long as you're African, what happens then?
Well, I don't know. Well, I guess.
And I'm so sorry for asking you. Look, these are just big questions that does not have one answer. It has many answers.
Yeah. Well, I guess in theory, that if that happens, then it just means we're gonna have to have every country, everything that we're importing right now should be available in Africa. In that sense, then possibly we might have a future where we're trading with each other for all our needs. And then because we're closed off, then it means we're keeping everything within Africa, which might lead to productivity increases, it might lead to economic growth. But this is all just a very huge, because I don't know how possible it is to keep.
Well, I mean, it's almost... and it's just a question that I play around with in my head, because I always like to, it's a big idea, but I always like to bring it back to myself as well, right? So, number one, is it possible to close Africa? I don't think it is where we are right now. Maybe it was easier a couple of decades ago when we were still growing, and I mean, the people that had the big ideas could have facilitated that, but we know how that turned out. And just to bring it back home, for me, it's almost like, okay, me saying let's close off Africa, that's saying, all right, look, Standard Bank, I'm not going to pay you for my credit card anymore. And you don't need to handle money, it's fine. I'm closing that off. I don't see you anymore. It will have implications, right? And you have, I'm just trying to think, you have it's not the criminal courts, because it wouldn't really be criminal, but it will be, I know the IMF will get involved, World Bank. We owe so much in terms of debt, even though we sometimes were forced into that debt. It's not that it's close to impossible. It's impossible unless somehow we can make all that debt disappear. Right.
That's what I'm saying. It's very difficult, but I think maybe the idea, it's sort of maybe there is a certain method to that. Is
that why I was actually asking the question is when I speak to some of my friends in terms of how it's a big question again. How do you fix Africa? It's just one of the avenues we explored.
Yeah.
And is it the right answer or one of the right answers for Africa? If ideally we could settle our debts and close it off.
I think we should settle our debt or have our debt. Actually, what I do think is like we shouldn't pay it because most of our debt was forced on us. I think if you just
Oh, okay.
have our debt, but that's a very radical position to take. But
So we need all countries to be on the same page to say, actually, we're not paying our debts. Screw you.
I mean, I think we've had debt forgiveness for some countries that are very highly impoverished, but it's not all of us. But I think, like you were saying, to me, that it does make you feel like a lot of this debt we shouldn't have. A lot of this debt is illicit in the sense that we got into it not really aware of what was going to happen, but also just like the way they forced it down on us, it's just not fair. It wasn't a fair. It's not a fair system. So that asymmetry, the only way to correct it is to just say, you know what, I'm not paying that debt. But that's just me saying I would do that. But I mean,
watch the implications. Oh, there's a war in Kenya. We need to go and solve that. They need democracy. But anyways, I'll throw shade. Jeez. Okay, no, cool. And my second question on, just before we wrap up again, was I've also been thinking about how we speak about solving Africa's problems, but Africa is it's a big continent with many countries, many cultures, many nationalities, many different languages, and way of life is different in all those countries. The similarities between Southern Africa, East Africa, but we're all different. My question is, why does the narrative keep on being, let us solve Africa? Why can't we say, let us solve South Africa,
right?
Let us solve Kenya, and the people in those countries should be having that narrative. Let me solve Eastern Cape. So almost like a bottom-up approach versus a top-down to say, I have the solution, everyone is going to benefit, which in theory I don't think can work. You know what I mean? So my question is, do you agree with the narrative? Because again, we also treat Africa as just this one blanket approach and it's one country, which obviously is not the case. Would you agree with the narrative to say, look, let us stop that narrative and let's speak country specific? I'll tell you now, if I had to, if there was R1 million on the table right now and they say, name all the African countries, I wouldn't win that R1 million, So who am I to say, okay, I'm going to solve Africa's problems when I don't even know all of the countries that are in Africa, So, yeah, what's your view on that in terms of the African narrative versus the national narrative?
Well, okay, so that's that's been highly discussed. That discourse has actually taken place mostly in academia, but also in journalism, that this monolith Africa isn't really there. But I think it's just I think most people have gotten used to it because we generally deal in stereotypes. So it's just easier to say Africa instead of Botswana, Namibia, Mozambique.
Nambia.
Well, if you got Donald Trump, yes. But I think there has been this move towards speaking of certain countries just for themselves because the context differs in all 54 African countries. But it's just like, I feel like for so long they've just been clamped together because the larger problems, the larger structural problems were very similar. And so it just made it easier for people to talk that way, it is lazy. It is lazy academically. It is also lazy in journalism, but it's just been there.
And Refilwe Damane, I want to thank you. Refilwe Damane. I want to thank you actually for taking the time to actually tell us about your journey and your views on Africa and economics. I really, really appreciate it. And hopefully with the likes of you and having you on the show is going to help the show grow. And also just, look, the goal is not for the show to be the biggest podcast. I think it's more to just facilitate the conversation.
Right.
And just for that one person, or especially what I liked about this episode was you offering value in terms of, look, we're going to offer some links as well in terms of how can you study abroad, and we broke down some of the misconceptions about studying abroad. So I really like that, for me, the objective is to just even if it's one person who will find value in all of this. So thank you for taking the time.
It's been an absolute privilege.
Because I know you're always out and about, Mr. Nomad. And my last question to end off, what legacy do you want to leave for the world?
Whoa, okay. Well, I should know this, but I feel like, for me, it's just about, it's about serving. It's about service. Service to people, mostly. It's just like, if I can help somebody, or I can make someone feel like, okay, I remember Ref because of A, B, or C. Even C is too much. Even if just A, I feel like that's it. That'll be my legacy. Because serving somebody means you help them, or you change their life. You change a certain way that their life was going to maybe something more positive. And so if I can have that, or can have that impact on one person, two people, hopefully more people, but generally I think the starting point is that one person will hopefully just grow on and longer.
And will trickle down.
In the words of the old.
No, that is lovely. Thank you very much for being on the show, and I hope to have you back, because we touched on a couple of topics, but again, it's always a conversation.
That's true.
I'm so glad I bumped into you. But I want to dive deeper into Africa. Into Africa, and more specifically, and this is just for you, there's many topics I'm interested in, but dive deeper into Africa and dive deeper into racism. Yeah. I think
those are heavy topics. They can go for many podcast sessions.
Yeah, I think, but we need to start having those conversations.
Yeah.
And I think even when I have this panel, we need to have white people on, we need to have Asians. And I'll keep it to South Africa for now, but I think you're going to really add a lot of value. But anyways, I ramble. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you. I will be very glad to come again.
And I would appreciate any feedback at this point with regards to what you liked about the show, and how can we make this show and this podcast better for you, whether you want longer form interviews or shorter. And lastly, I appreciate you taking the time to listen to this. Stay awesome, light up the dark, and remember to tell your story. And hopefully I can bump into you soon. 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 I can bump into